Welcome everybody back to the process group. The way the program is designed, there are 5 phases, and so we have 5 classes, or in each phase you have 9 lessons like what we just did, where we spend time, small groups, doing the activities and the work. Then the 10th, the last class in the phase is the phase up, and this is where we celebrate, wow, we've made it. So for you guys it's like, wow, you're almost done with the day. Almost ready to start your weekend. It's done to celebrate the actual work that they've done. And what we want them to do is actually evaluate the work they've done. So they will actually, in your handbooks, you'll actually have a copy of the process evaluation. And they will look at, what have I learned so far? What am I working on? Am I doing my homework? Am I participating in class? So they're going to rate themselves. And then we ask them 2 questions to look at, and that's that introspection that we talked about, looking inside themselves. What am I doing well? That's part of that solution focus, looking at strengths-based, what am I doing well? And what am I still challenged by? What am I still needing to learn? So I kind of gave you some questions similar to that. Number 1, we're going to look at 3 questions. What has been helpful to you in today's session? So I want you to think about, what was it when you came in, as you're leaving today, going, wow, that was helpful. That's something I might be able to use. What information confirms what you already know, what you're already doing? So I'm sure for some of you it's like, oh, I already know about that. I'm already doing that. Or, oh, good, I'm on the right track. Somebody else is saying that that's something I need to be doing. And then what will you do differently or, add to your bag of tricks? What is it now as a result of being in this group? Are you going to actually take away and try to implement and try to do something different? Like I said, you have homework next week. For some of you, that's going to be a real shift because you maybe haven't done learning activities for your groups. And so now you're going to actually take an activity, take some information you teach them, and actually turn it into something practical that they'll do. Okay, so does everybody understand the questions? Oftentimes in this group setting, we do something a little extra. We usually have we always have drinks, coffee and water, but we'll sometimes bring cookies or we'll bring ice cream bars. I think Diane started the ice cream bar track because it is a celebration. It is something we want them to really be excited about. What it also does mentally, if you think about, when we take trips, don't we break our trips up into workable chunks? Getting from here to New York City is a really long trip. But if you break it up into certain chunks, you can, get so far in one day and get so far in another day. Well, that's kind of how this is designed. It allows you opportunities to go, gosh, we're already done with one phase. You only got 4 more to go, or we're halfway done. So it's that constant reminding them of what they've done already and how far they've progressed. So it acts as an encouragement. So one of the things I do in the group is I'll go around and get volunteers at first. Who would like to share what their answer to their process questions, and then eventually, but everybody will answer. So you want to make sure you get to everybody, because this is the one time, whether they're introvert or extrovert, this is the one time you want to make sure everybody gets an answer out. Okay, any thoughts or questions on that? Okay, well, let's start. Who would like to start with what's been helpful to you in today's session?
Oh, first. All right.
I see it's the energized Garden Pathways people.
Give us a look.
What's helpful to me today is I think sometimes when I go to these trainings, it kind of re-energizes me and makes me realize, why we do what we do. Taking away and also just the different perspectives at my table and other people from walking around the room definitely helps me remember that other people have other perspectives too.
Oh, good. Good. So was there anything we did that actually kind of confirmed for you what...
I think just watching it, I think sometimes when you facilitate it, you sometimes, I think I forget, I don't know about other people, but I forget, and then I see somebody else kind of facilitate what we're doing, I'm like, oh yeah, and I remember that. It just helps me kind of reinforce different things and different tools that I'm able to use or that I have kind of in my tool belt that sometimes I forget about because we get caught in the hustle and bustle.
Very true.
Sometimes it's just like, let's just get the information to them, but it's more than that. It's about we want to see these transformations and we want to see behavior changes and things. So it's a reminder to stay on the game for me.
Perfect. Is there anything different you're going to do now as a result of
Stay on my
today?
game.
Stay on your game. Okay. Excellent. Thanks, Hannah. Ricardo, did you want to go next?
Something that was helpful for me is the 7 types of communication, forms of communication.
Oh, yeah.
We kind of already touched that in some of the classes that we teach, but I just wasn't 100% sure about it, so that was really helpful for me, just being able to go through that. What information confirms what I've already knew or already been doing. I think a lot of what was discussed today kind of just, reassured me that I'm on the right track with doing what we're already doing, and just seeing everybody else's or hearing everybody else's input was very helpful as well.
Perfect.
And then what would you do differently or add to your bag of tricks? I mean, definitely the 7 forms of communication will be added to my bag of tricks.
Mhm.
And then the anger iceberg, that wasn't one of my strong subjects, but now I like the way it was explained, so that'll be helpful as well.
Oh, excellent. Okay, good. Wonderful. Who else? Marissa?
What's been helpful this session, I love the interactive activities that you do. As a facilitator, I have 2.5 hours to teach, and I can't do direct teaching the whole time. It's not in a jail setting. So each of the flow charts that you did, the way that you provide choice for everything, it's so important on their attitudes. When you just offer the pin, like we discussed earlier, the pin on how that affected me, it also affects them. So that was really helpful, as well as the information. Confirms what I've already been doing. Every day I teach a lesson, I always write topic and objective on the board. So topic is the 5 love languages. Objective, student will assess which is their love language and how they can, make their relationship better. So that I already do, but sometimes I can see maybe my objective might be a little overwhelming. And you talked about just doing the 7-minute, like next week how we're going to do a 7-minute presentation. And maybe I could limit my objectives to something a little bit more simpler. So that's pretty good. And also the iceberg, I absolutely love that when you did that on the board. So some of the other things you continue to write, I usually only write hurt, disappointment, and fear. So to put the other things was also important. And then what will you do differently? Add to your bag of tricks. I think that already so many things we've been taking notes at our table and discussing. I think I want to implement some of the lessons that I saw in the participant book. I mean, we took a glance at it and we're discussing it even at lunch. It's so beneficial and useful, and I think it's also very tailored to students of all different education levels. In my jail setting, I have different ages and education levels and low-level readers, and so I think that just being able to incorporate some of those lessons will be really useful and beneficial for me.
That's great. I had somebody look at it, and I guess I had not realized it. She said, this is a life skills book. It's not just domestic violence. And as I went through, there's probably 7 or 8 lessons that are very specifically directed to domestic violence, such as watching when men hurt. Although you could use it in parenting maybe to talk about those issues. But for the most part, there's just very few that are so specific to domestic violence. Most of it is life skills, because I think what we've found, those of us working in domestic violence, is that it happens because people don't have those life skills. They don't have the communication skills. They don't know about themselves. I want you to make me feel better because I don't know how to make me feel better. And so I get mad at you as my partner when you don't make me feel better, or you make me feel bad. So I think a lot of it, I would love to see that happen in other settings, just to use that. So great, thank you. That's an encouragement to me. Thanks. Okay, who else? Right. Okay.
Well, what's been helpful is just hearing everybody else's approach. There's I think different agencies here present, so hearing everybody else's strengths and being able to think of ways to adapt them into our own delivery. But also just some of the tips. Somebody mentioned about selecting, but some of the best practices for facilitation. Those have been very, very helpful. What information confirms, so you already knew or already doing. The whole trauma informed, the piece of starting from a place of healing, but starting from, we mentioned it earlier about humanizing the individual, saying this is not, even in the wording that we use, we work with people, we're trying to go from calling them ex-offenders to maybe calling them the justice population, where it has a more positive notion, but starting with that, and then what will we do differently or add to a bag of tricks? Right now we're in a place where we want to see how can we continue to add value to the way that we facilitate our curriculum or the services that we provide. And so one of them is the the evaluation form where we can do maybe self-evaluations,
Okay.
or even have monthly or bi-monthly evaluations
Mhm.
of the facilitator, but even from the participant's perspective, how well are we doing our work, and where can we continue to add value?
That would be great. You know, I found the men really appreciated when I've asked their opinion on what do you think, and they've given some really good feedback, and I think it really does show value to them that you do care, that you care about what you're doing, and you already do, so this is just another way of confirming that to them. So excellent. Did the facilitator, the sheet that you guys graded me with, is that something that might be helpful for you to use, or?
Yeah, we were already planning on photocopying with our phone.
Oh, I was gonna say, I'll email it to
Okay,
you.
good. So we don't have to- So we're already-
I don't like to
is this-
retype stuff if
is
you
this
don't have to.
copywritten?
No, it's,
Okay.
it's available to you guys, so absolutely. And then that way, if you get it in Word, then you can actually make changes. You know, if you have some other areas that you want to target
Okay.
to measure, that would be great.
That'd be great.
Good, I'm glad I could help on that. Ryan, were you acting like you
Absolutely.
want? Okay.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm good. One thing that was helpful for me was when you just broke down the part where we could select the pins, the Sharpies.
Oh, okay.
It really reminded me of how precious the time is that our clients that we have with our clients that we serve.
Mhm.
And every opportunity, even to the point of passing or giving pins, the option.
Yeah.
Like it shows value, buy-in, just more participation, and maybe a more open heart to learn.
Mhm.
And so every minute, every hour matters. And for the clients, especially the ones that they don't pay for our services, how can they still have a sense of, man, I really need to get something from this. There's a reason why I'm here. And it just, for me at least as a facilitator, to want to pour more of myself out. Not to blur the line between, facilitator and a client who I can teach from a different perspective.
Right.
But to be more open to them so that they're more encouraged to be open and grow.
That's great.
So that was one of them. What was our second
The
one?
information that confirms what you already knew or were doing already?
Just that I cared. I think just the love that I have to see people just transform.
Mhm.
That one's really important to me, and just being
Obviously a
able to see-
big one to me, so.
Yeah. And just see where all of that comes from.
Mhm.
Our clients will never see us getting involved in 2 Fridays like this. They'll never see us putting in the work or bearing the nerves to really show our hearts, so that when we do go in to facilitate,
Mhm.
we're on our game.
You are.
We know everything it is to know about this particular subject.
And if I may share on that when you become a subject matter expert, it shows value to the client and they appreciate that. And like you're saying, you don't work harder than they do. They have to do the work, but you're at least providing the forum for them. So I love that. And so what will you do differently? What will you add to your bag of tricks? You're obviously going to give them a choice on their pen.
That's,
So.
that's probably it. Just including folks more, and
Mhm.
maybe asking them to even lead us, especially if they're the expert in a particular situation
Oh, okay.
or experience.
Sure.
Just really letting them kind of lead. So really empowering folks to share more.
That's a very good point. And what you're saying about them being an expert, they are an expert in their lives. They are an expert. And for us to come in and even, all we can do is hope to get permission to help them look at their lives in a different way and look at their strategies differently. But they are the experts in their life. And we don't go home with them after that 2-hour group. So we don't know really what goes on. And all we can do is provide the information like you're saying. So very good. And it was nice to meet you, Ryan. I'm glad you
Good to
came.
meet you, yeah.
Okay, who else? Heather.
I'll go.
Okay. You want to go after her? Okay. Brenda?
What's been helpful, I'm really excited about the book. I think it's one place where we can have all these different tools and ideas that we can just grab and modify it, because I was already having ideas how we can modify it for the groups that I do.
Oh, good.
And what confirms what I already knew, that I work really hard in trying to use positivity.
Mhm.
So many of our clients, it's just been about punishment.
Right.
and we've got to get away from that because it doesn't work. And what I'll do differently is just reminder to mix things up. The groups that I do, it's like I have a certain formula,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's really important to do the different activities so that they get the different ways of learning and
Right.
not get bored.
That's good. There is a list of some books that would be helpful at the end of the facilitator guide, and I believe I have it on there. It's Brain Science Principles, and she talks about really mixing stuff up. I don't mix it up that quickly, but she'll say 7 to 10 minutes. Every 7 to 10 minutes, you're doing something different. That's a little busy for me, but you know, and you have to work at your own pace, what you're comfortable with, because obviously, if you're not comfortable with it, the clients aren't going to be comfortable. But she does have some really great ideas on how you can mix it up and do different things. So. That's great. Good, thanks. Diane?
What was helpful for me today was really hearing the different perspectives from different agencies, especially from Lardo, because Lardo is something new for our agency,
Mhm.
and how to be able to facilitate and execute the materials so that there's participation and you engage the inmates as well.
Right.
And what information confirms what you already knew or were already doing is seeing the flow charts, seeing the charts up there, and the different, letting the clients choose, because I know that I do that just from the training at BTC, is allowing them to pick, because they usually don't have a choice, and letting them know that they do have a choice at our agency.
Mm-hmm.
And what would I do differently? I would really like to incorporate more in a facility like Lardo with our parents on a mission, how we can engage them more rather than it being more of a teacher instead of a
Mhm.
facilitation, because we're so limited.
Mhm.
How we can incorporate that parents on a mission so it is more engaging to the inmates there.
Perfect. Good. And anytime there's something I can help with, by all means, get a hold of me. And if you have your curriculum and you're stumped on how you might make that an activity, maybe I might be able to give some ideas for you.
That'd be great.
So, yeah, because it's always, you want them to walk away feeling like, oh, that was a really fun class. I mean, you were with BTC, and it was like, okay, guys, 2 hours is done. Really? You know, so that's what you want. You want them to walk away going, yeah, this went fast.
We have them for 3 hours.
Wow, that is a long time. Even more. Good.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, who else? Sabrina.
I think the talk about perceptions
Mhm.
and reminding us that everybody has their own perception, and using some of the activities to clarify what the client's perceptions are, what we are teaching them, and trying to make those congruent. I think what confirms what we already knew, we do use the anger iceberg quite a bit.
Mhm.
It was good to hear another presentation on that, so that I can critique myself and see what I can add. And I think what I will do differently is to be more interactive with the groups, do more activities. We already are part of the Window Between Worlds when
Mhm.
we work with the art workshops, but I think the material and the books that you've given us is something that we can use to make our groups better.
Great. Good. Thanks. And Sabrina, I didn't move anybody at all today, did
No,
I?
you didn't. There's still one more day.
Thanks. So.
I've been doing this for 14 years, and every year I go to trainings. And you know, this training, you know, in my experience, has been for me to be more listen more to the participants, and listening to your experiences, it confirms my experience and improves my confidence in what I'm doing with clients. So that's a big part that I have experienced today. And something that confirms my learning experience, you know, is the attentive listening part, the exercise that we did.
Mm-hmm.
I remember reading this, Why Am I Afraid to Tell You Who I Am? It's an old book. And at the beginning of that book, a therapist says, a psychiatrist, that the human person is always looking to find someone who's going to listen to, someone who's going to understand, and someone who is going to be willing to accept him or her the way he or she is. So that confirms my, exciting learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one, I'm looking forward to implement this approach. I have used other approaches from the STAT program,
Mm-hmm.
and this is going to be something that I'm looking for. We have the writer here in Kern County, and I think this is one of the first approaches that we are developing in Kern County. So
It is.
that's looking forward to that.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I'm excited to see that, how that's going to look. Thanks. Who else?
I'll go next.
Okay.
What has been helpful is, I've looked at both the anger scale and the iceberg. I've used the iceberg before, but the
Mhm.
anger scale, not as much. But I work at Lordville, but I also work at an elementary school, and I teach in the elementary school with the high-risk kids.
Oh.
It's awesome to see intervene when they're young. It's so important to intervene.
Right.
It's vital. So they won't end up at Lordville. So I'm gifted. I think I have a prime position as I am. So I'm going to go ahead and use the anger scale with elementary kids and take it to a different level. Because I like the
Great.
approach. I'm thinking emotional. I knew you introduced that, but I didn't elaborate on that.
Oh,
When I
okay.
think about it now, I go, I should have done that. Let's see, what information confirms what you already knew? Yeah, I kind of do that already. The thinking and the emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Emphasize that. What would I do? What differently or add is, take them to a different level. That'd be
Okay.
like the little ones.
And move them through that emotional stage.
Yeah.
Good.
I don't know. Challenge them a little bit more.
That's wonderful. Good. And hitting them young, that's great.
Yeah.
Getting to them, then.
It's awesome when you can get kids outside, the playground. Take a deep breath, do the positive self-talk.
Aw, that's so
Teaching
cool.
the other kids.
Yeah.
Awesome. It's a high. It's a high for me.
And that's something that we have found with our men is as we teach them this, they go home and teach their own children, and that's what we try to teach them to do, is to go home and model this for your own children and teach them how to do it. None of you, just because they watched you drive a car for 16 years, you wouldn't hand the car keys to them.
Right.
Well, you can't assume just because you've changed your behavior, the children have learned how to handle their anger and their other emotions and such. So you need to teach them. You need to be involved actively with them. And so we do part of that in the group too. So, great.
You do good work.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm in good company here. Who else? Javier?
Well, the first thing I want to say is the start of school activity that we did today just reminded me of the energy that our students out there in Lordville are putting
Right.
and how much persistence they're trying to and inquiring and to going into a new status quo. And what I was already doing was giving them resources, and I had already started to get speakers from the community. I had some, garden pathways, they went to my classes and so they could see a face. But I think what I'm gonna do from here on with a bag of tricks is try to see what other resources are out there in the community and see if I could get them in there so that when our students are hitting the streets, they not only have a paper, but they have a face to connect to. And that's one of my goals for years to come. And I know Lordville's being more open to that.
Yeah, I saw
So-
that. The resource
so now
fair.
The resource fair, so now let's see
Mhm.
what other things they're open to as well.
That's
So
wonderful.
if I call you guys, I expect you guys to go to class.
We can exchange numbers and email addresses next week if you like, and that way you have each other to contact. So, good. Awesome.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay.
So one of the things that was helpful was learning new ideas on how to incorporate the different learning styles. A lot of times we do facilitate 4 hours, and so teaching for 4 hours straight could be very draining. So just incorporating more different learning styles. Everybody learns in different ways, so I thought that was helpful. Confirms what we already knew. One of my biggest, concerns working with the population that we work with was I going to be unbiased because I had worked so long with victims.
Okay.
And so I always question that. I'm like, is that going to be difficult for me to do? But one of the things that you were saying is, you know, just really looking at an individual for who they are as a person, and a lot of times, you know, they're hurting and not really, you know, just criticizing them or judging them for their experiences and their choices. So I just confirm that I am doing, you know, because I don't look at that. And we don't really look at backgrounds, so I don't really know their criminal history. Although I know it exists, it's there, because we're picking them up from Lerdo, but just really connecting with them as an individual, you know, building that relationship. And so the last one, what will I add or do differently? Of course, incorporate the different learning styles and facilitator evaluation. I think that would be helpful to really look at, you know, what is it that I'm doing or what can I improve in. Yeah.
Great. Okay. You got some real practical stuff. Great, thanks. Jenny?
For me, what has been helpful is instead of what's wrong with the person, look at what happened to them. Because a lot of my students, they have so many things going on with them, and all you see is they're acting out behavior. You don't necessarily dwell in as much as to why they're acting that way. I have some of these students and their families for 4 years, so that's enough time to kind of figure out what was going on with them, you know, if I do what I need to do.
Right.
And that kind of confirms what I already do. I already know that as a freshman, they're going to be this heaping ball of emotions, and by the time they get to senior year, all this work that I put into them, you know, throughout the 3 years is going to actually make sense. Those people whose communication was this, or, you know, this side eye, or I don't want to talk, that changes to Mrs. James. I know you're going to listen to me. You've been there for me when I needed you. You've helped me on everything. So I know that, you know, the work that I put into them at a young age will come back later with many, many, you know, things to gain from that. And what am I going to add or do differently is I like this, quit taking it personally. Kids are the professional, take everything personally. If you give them a wrong look or you don't do something exact, I mean, they're what they call professional fault finders. Any little small thing that you don't do for somebody else that you do for them, they see that. So to let them know, look, I'm going to make a mistake or two, and you're going to make a mistake or two, I'll forgive you, you forgive me, but let's not take it personally.
That's great. Good. You got something. Now you can just take a box of Q-tips with you to the office and just hand out the Q-tips. That's great. Thank you. How exciting to have them that long that you can actually see some
And then
benefit.
I have families longer than that, because if I have
Brothers,
alphabet,
siblings.
so mother, aunts, uncles, cousins, all that.
Wow. That's what it was like being a probation officer, unfortunately. So you got the more positive in there.
Yeah.
Good deal. Thanks. Who else? Noelle?
I think it's always helpful with your trainings because you add, like you said, learning styles, so it's not just being facilitated to, but engaging in interaction. And I like hearing from those of you who work with batterers because they're dealing, you know, with victims and children. But a lot of the activity is universal. Anybody can, you know, there's skill sets that anybody can learn, which I like, and the fact that, you know, you are human and stuff, so that's always really helpful. What confirms what I already knew or doing, I think modeling is a big one, especially with my clients. I work with the women and the children. I try to model what behavior I want to see in them so they can see, because you can't teach them something that they don't know what it is.
Exactly.
And so that's something I try, especially with the kids, to do for them. And then also, one of my groups, we do journaling, and so if they're new, I always say, what is it that you want to learn? I mean, 3 things you want to learn. If they've already been there a while, it's like, well, what 3 things have you already learned thus far? So I can kind of get a gauge on, you know, where they're at.
Wonderful.
Something to add, I think a little more activities with my adult groups. I do a lot of activities with the kids because that's how they learn, and it's fun for them, but I think incorporating more of that. Like Sabrina said, we do have a window between all the art programs, and so maybe adding some more of that into my adult groups.
That'd be great, especially those some of the activities we did where they can draw on their own experiences and then learn from there. So good, excellent. Okay, who else do we have left?
I'll go next.
Fabiola?
What's been helpful for me, too much to list, I'd have to say fear, both the one that you shared and the one that you shared not. Q-tip.
One you could use and one.
Both of them, they're both good. What else? The status quo activity that you shared right now too before we started group, that's amazing because it really hits home in having a better understanding what our parents go through in facilitating parent project for the current high school district.
Oh, okay.
Having a better understanding of why some of them don't fall, or fall off, better yet, after, 2-3 weeks. So having a better understanding, and at the same time, one of my goals is reaching out to other agencies, out there to see, what other services are out there for the parents and families that we work with.
Good.
What are some of, what else? The 7 modes of communication, that was a big one for me. And what will you differently or add to my bag of tricks? Add the different modes of communication. That's a big one for me. And everything that I learned today, too much to list.
Oh, that's great. Well, good. I'm glad. Was there anything that confirmed that you've already been doing that you went, oh yeah, okay, I'm on that?
Listening.
Okay, good.
With the parents we work with, the fact that they finally go to someone that listens, first of all, and understands where they come from.
Mm-hmm. So you see the power of that.
Yeah, yes.
Very much. Good. And I'm so glad it worked out for you guys. They've been trying to get my trainings for about a year. So I was like, finally, our schedule's connected. So good. Okay, my pleasure. And let's see, yes?
What has been helpful for me today was the stages of change.
Mm-hmm.
It gives me like a broader idea as what they go through, what people go through, in order to be compliant with the program and the requirements. What confirms what I already knew, the communication skills.
Good.
That was very important for me to, I guess, to kind of get a refresher on how it is that people communicate. And I would maybe add more activities to any of the groups.
Good. Well, then your homework, you can take one of the groups you're doing and pull something in and practice it on us if you want. We'll be your guinea pigs.
Sounds like a deal.
That's good. Thanks, Maria.
Okay, I guess I'm going next. What has been helpful for me is knowing that it's okay to say when we're burnt out, that we need to do that. A lot of us try to be strong, but actually we're not, and it shows. So that was pretty helpful. I give kudos to everybody because I know we deal with a lot of not too good people, but anyway. Confirms the status quo. I've been doing that. I've been doing the iceberg, so that's pretty good. Different, the way I feel when I come here, I want my clients to feel. So I would think my environment I need to change. I need to use more soft music, make it enticing, inviting for them, and I think that's going to be a big difference for them.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and so I want them to feel like I feel when I come. It energizes. It gives us, like go back and show everybody what you learned. But it's a good feeling, and I want them to do that.
That's great. And I think you'll find you get more energized with it too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, once you see them, you do it too. So, yeah.
That's fabulous. Glad you guys made it. Ruben?
Oh, my name?
I think you're it.
Huh?
Your last one?
Oh.
We're gonna wrap up.
Well, I've been waiting for everybody to finish so I could top everybody. I love humor, and I try to use it in my classes. And it has its limitations too, because if they get a hold of it, they can take it to another level. So let's be careful. But what is? I don't want to sound condescending or anything, but it's been great working with you for these years, and what's been helpful to me all the time is your passion kind of rubs off on me and reminds me what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And some of you know I'm kind of semi-retired, and
Nobody will let you retire.
and I just can't let go of this now because we made a commitment, and I really I really believe in these guys. I really believe people can change. And I tell them that every day when I have them.
That's wonderful.
So that helps me too. I also go to the monthly meeting, the
DVAC.
The DVAC meeting, where I hear the victim side, and though I've worked with the victim side for many years in public health, I go there and it reminds me of what I'm dealing with on the other side. And I think we have to keep a balance and to understand that that these guys in front of me need to change because something really bad has happened in their lives. We need to spend the energy to help them. So I need to keep that balance. And what's confirmed today is that we're on the right track. It's necessary. It's needed out there. Even if they don't want it, we need it. And the last thing that I'll add, it's been said that the books. I've been waiting for these for a long time.
Well, if I was better at formatting, they would have been done quicker.
Yeah. And what it does for me is I have all this information. You and I have had trainings together. I mean, we've got a lot of years of experience, but it's been like up here in the cloud. And what you did in those books is you brought it all together. And I've got it organized now, and I can just work off of it, and it makes it a lot easier. If in your teaching profession, you know that getting ready for class is probably the most stressful part. Executing it is okay, but if you're not ready, it creates a lot of stress.
So true.
This book, to me, means no stress next year. It really does, because I don't have to stress about what I'm going to do. All I got to do is say, I'm on page so and so. Thanks.
That's great.
Appreciate
My
it.
pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. You guys have been amazing to work with. I really, I was excited getting the books. Like I said, I knew the material. It was up here. It was just putting it into form. So that's been a challenge, but you guys have been very supportive, and just to have the opportunity to actually kind of go through the training with you and see what that fit like. And so your feedback is really helping me look at maybe doing this training more often, just simply because it seems like it was helpful for you to actually get the behind the scenes, how to do these things. A lot of that's written in the facilitator book, but I know sometimes not all of us are wanting to sit down and actually read through the whole thing, and so it kind of helps to see it in action. So I'm glad we had that chance to do it. And I'm excited to see what you guys are going to do next week. So where you're going to take that and make it very practical. So is there anything that anybody has any questions about the facilitator, your grading of me, any questions or anything on that before you hand those in? I'll just put them on the table. Okay, so that'll be the form you guys will get next week then to work with each other. And then you'll have your own feedback that you can take with you. I just really appreciate you guys.